Hello, friend. Thanks for joining me for another book chat. Today, let's spend some time with The High Window by Raymond Chandler, some hard-boiled detective fiction from 1942. The High Window by Raymond Chandler. This is the third of the Chandler novels that I've read. I read The Big Sleep a while back and Farewell, My Lovely. I will link to those chats down below, but I definitely wanted to get another Raymond Chandler novel read this year, so here we are. This is the third of the Chandler novels that features the detective Philip Marlowe. So this is a detective story. I'm going to be careful here to not give away anything that I think would detract from a first-time reader's experience with The High Window. And so this will be a spoiler-free alert, which is a little hard to do sometimes with a detective story, with a mystery. But what I did is I actually wrote a summary that I think sort of describes what's going on, the main sort of theme of the book. And then what I'll do here in this chat, I think, is I'll talk a bit about some of the characters and the dialogue, the description of some of the main characters, just the dialogue from this vernacular from 1942, I think is so cool, this sort of slang that's used and this sort of writing style that Raymond Chandler has, really sort of a streetwise, hard-boiled style. And so then, yeah, I'll wind up the chat with talking about a couple of main themes that I took away from the book. But the description, so the setting, first of all, we're in Los Angeles in the time the book was written, so around 1942. And the description basically is a wealthy widow, Mrs. Murdoch, hires hard-boiled detective Philip Marlowe to find and recover a missing, rare, and valuable gold coin known as the Brasher doubloon. Now, I looked up Brasher doubloon. This is actually a real collectible coin, a gold coin from, I think, the 18th century in the United States, so around, I think, 1787. Anyway, Mrs. Murdoch has an overprotected son named Leslie Murdoch, who has married a woman against her will, a former nightclub singer that goes by the name of Linda Conquest. Love that name. From whom he has become estranged and who has since gone missing. Marlowe starts to chase some leads in, trying to find Linda and the coin. Chase some leads, including Linda's friend Lois Magic, who's someone she knew also from the nightclub, who we learn has since married the owner, the nightclub owner where Linda used to sing. Marlowe finds out where Lois Magic now lives and goes to visit her, only to find her in the company of a gigolo type of guy called Veneer, with whom it becomes apparent she's must be having some kind of an affair with. It looks like something's going on there. There's another sort of main character here. Marlowe suspects there's a backstory with the timid and jittery Murdoch family secretary named Merle. And he suspects that she may be hiding a dark secret. So that's all the stuff. That's where Marlowe starts out this story, trying to uncover where's Linda, where's the doubloon, who stole it, what became of it, and try to recover it for Mrs. Murdoch, and then what's going on with these other characters like Merle, the timid, jittery secretary, the gigolo type Veneer, Lois Magic, etc. So lots of action then ensues. He uncovers all sorts of nefarious things and goings on. I won't really disclose all the different crimes that he does eventually uncover, because that would give away too much and I think detract from a reader's experience. But it was a lot of fun. But let's just jump into a few of these characters because I think they're so fun. The descriptions of them. Let's start out with Marlowe's description. He sees a photograph of Linda Conquest. Whenever he goes to meet Mrs. Murdoch, she gives him a photograph to go try to find Linda, and he describes Linda's photograph like this: a wide, cool, go-to-hell mouth with very kissable lips, nice nose, not too small, not too large, good bone all over the face. The expression of the face lacked something. Once that something might have been called breeding, but these days I didn't know what to call it. The face looked too wise and too guarded for its age. Too many passes had been made at it, and it had grown a little too smart in dodging them. So here, it really expresses this. Linda's got this world-weary look. This is really typical of this hard-boiled style from 1942, where the characters are a bit world-weary, a bit cynical, oftentimes very shady, and so it, comes across often in their descriptions. And then there's this description of Linda's friend Lois Magic. When Marlo does eventually meet her, he describes her as a long-limbed, languorous type of showgirl blonde lay at her ease in one of the chairs with her feet raised on a padded rest, and a tall misted glass at her elbow near a silver ice bucket and a scotch bottle. She looked at us lazily as we came over the grass. From 30 feet away, she looked like a lot of class. From 10 feet away, she looked like something made up to be seen from 30 feet away. I think that's so cool. And then there's this exchange between Marlo and Mrs. Murdoch, sort of describing or illustrating the descriptive language in this novel. And Marlo's has just met Mrs. Murdoch for the first time, and he's getting ready to leave. And the quote says, "She let me get to the door before she growled at my back. 'You don't like me very well, do you?' I turned to grin back at her with my hand on the knob. 'Does anybody?'" So funny. And then there's this exchange between Marlo and Leslie Murdoch. So Leslie Murdoch, Mrs. Murdoch's son, who has married the since gone missing Linda Conquest, comes to visit Marlo in his office, which is sort of a low rent, in a low rent kind of building, not too well furnished office. And he says, "Marlo," he said, even more earnestly, "I'll try hard, but I don't think I'm going to like you." "I'm screaming," I said, with rage and pain. "And if you will pardon a homely phrase, your tough guy act stinks. Coming from you, that's bitter." He leaned back again and brooded at me with pale eyes. He fussed around in the chair, trying to get comfortable. A lot of people had tried to get comfortable in that chair. I ought to try it myself sometime. Maybe it was losing business for me. So, Murdoch's in this sort of rickety chair in front of Marlo's desk, and fussing around, trying to actually get information from Marlo that Marlo doesn't really want to disclose. And that really brings me to really one of the main themes of the book, and that is Marlo, his relationship with the police. So he needs the police to be kind of on his side. Sometimes he needs information from them on the one hand, but on the other hand, they want information from him that he feels like he can't disclose. He doesn't entirely trust the police. He might trust individual police officers, but the police in general and the justice system in general, he's very skeptical of, very cynical of, and very distrustful of. And there's a quote here that describes this. Marlo's actually explaining this to one of the police officers about why he's not going to tell him information about his client. And the quote says, "Until you guys own your own souls, you don't own mine. Until you guys can be trusted every time and always, in all times and conditions, to seek the truth out and find it and let the chips fall where they may, until that time comes, I have a right to listen to my conscience and protect my client the best way I can. Until I'm sure you won't do him more harm than you'll do the truth good, or until I'm hauled before somebody that can make me talk." So, he's saying here, he doesn't trust the police because he's seen too many cases. He actually talks about a case in this book that I read later was based on a true story, true crime case, where, the wealthy and the powerful get away with crimes, whereas those, often the innocent, then actually stand in, get accused, and the justice system ends up incarcerating or in sort of persecuting the wrong people. And the cops a lot of times go along with this. So Marlowe's got a lot of, he's very distrustful of this. He has to keep his clients have to be able to know that when they tell him sensitive information about their lives, that it's not going to be given to the police or to some other, group. And if it got around that he was the type of a private eye that just went and sang to the police, then he wouldn't get the information from his clients that he needed to actually solve their cases for them. And so, that's a dilemma that he has, because he needs to walk a fine line. And we saw this in the other two Chandler novels as well, of both working and cooperating with the police on the one hand to some degree, and then for his client on the other hand. There's another quote around sort of the distrust of the police here, and the quote is, "A New York police reporter wrote once that when you pass in beyond the green lights of a precinct station, you pass clear out of this world into a place beyond the law." Where when the police take someone in, often what comes out of that encounter is not lawful, and it's not the truth, and that's what Marlo is very, very suspicious of. So that theme of the mistrust of the justice system, I think definitely runs throughout this novel. And then Marlo as a hero. Marlo, we saw him as in the other two novels that I've read from Chandler, where he's also sort of this hero who's not quite the shining knight in shining armor type of hero, but nevertheless there's some kind of nobility there. There's a certain nobility there. There's a certain idealism there that you can see. You can see his idealism sort of seeping through sometimes through this sort of hard-boiled, cynical, wisecracking exterior that he has. You can see under all that he does actually have some ideals, and he is actually sticking to them. He will actually even suffer for them. He will hold to them sometimes against all odds, or against many odds. And he actually, you see this interaction with one of the main characters here that I've mentioned throughout this story, later on in this story, where he actually comes to this character's rescue, basically, and is sort of a knight in shining armor to that character before it's all said and done. Finally, there's one final quote that I wanted to leave this chat with, not because it's related to any of my themes, it's just that I love this quote so much, I got such a kick out of it. It says, "Class is a thing that has a way of dissolving rapidly in alcohol." One of the characters is telling Marlo, or Marlo's actually saying, talking about a woman, and the other character says, too much class. And Marlo says, "Class is a thing that rapidly dissolves. That has a way of rapidly dissolving in alcohol." I think that's so funny. Love that line. Okay, I'm going to leave this chat here. I enjoyed this so much, as I have enjoyed all the hard-boiled novels that I've read from this era, particularly the Chandler ones. And I have some more hard-boiled fiction coming up this year. Probably we'll get to some, and I'm actually also going to read some contemporary hard-boiled fiction, I think, coming up. Or at least I have some on my to-read list. I think I will end the chat there. My next chat is actually going to be Second Foundation by Isaac Asimov, some 1950s classic science fiction coming up soon. Stay tuned.